Hey everyone, and welcome to StarBound Stories. I'm JC Mastro, the author of the YA sci-fi novel Academy Bound. If you haven't heard the news, the very long overdue audiobook version of Academy Bound is releasing this June, and I'm very excited. And to try to get everybody else excited, I'm creating a series of episodes talking about the book and sharing some special behind the scenes content. This episode is extra special because I am joined by the narrator of Academy Bound, actor, director, voiceover artist, award winning narrator, rock star drummer, and everyone's favorite meerkat, Fred Berman.
What's going on?
Hey, man. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great.
I'm
It's so
really
cool to
glad
do this.
Yeah, thank you for coming on and talking with me. And
Oh, my pleasure.
I just want, share with everybody like the guy behind the voice in the book and get to know you a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about the book too, just a
Okay.
smidge, but mostly about, I'd like everybody to know who you are and how we kind of came together on this thing. So,
All righty.
could you just tell us a bit about yourself and your career, kind of like where you started and some of your accomplishments and projects?
Yeah. Where I started. I'm a New York-based actor. I guess I start my very first performance. I was just talking to my son about this because he was asking me questions about what I do for a project that he's got to do for school. He's 16. He's taking a video class, so he wanted to do like a little documentary,
Oh,
about
that's
his
fun.
parents. Yeah. So he was like, "What was the first thing you did?" And I'm like, "My very first performance, I was the littlest Christmas tree in the littlest Christmas tree." Maybe
Oh,
you
wow.
heard of it. It was written up, got great reviews. No, so I did that in elementary school. That was my first, the one Jewish kid in school playing the Christmas tree.
Sure.
No clue. But yeah, so I'm a New York-based actor. I've been acting since I was a kid in school, and went to college for it, studied theater, and then been lucky to have been working all theaters all over New York and all over the country, and film and TV and voiceovers. And I'm currently I've been playing the role of Timon in The Lion King on Broadway for the last 14 years now.
Wow.
It's been a
That's a
while.
run.
Yeah, it's a lot of Hakuna Matatas. So that's been really cool. And then I guess my day job, that's my night job. And then my day job, I've been really lucky to do some super cool audiobooks like Academy Bound. So
Oh, wow. Thank you.
yeah, so it's great. I've been very, very lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got something like 400 books to your name at this point?
Yeah, something like that. Somewhere around there. There's a lot
Wow.
that it's weird because then it might even be more because I've done a bunch that for whatever reason, like if it's a multicast or something, like if your
Oh,
name
yeah.
isn't like the first one featured on Audible, like then so there's a lot of books that I've done that they're on Audible or you can find them, but if you did a search, they wouldn't come up. Like I did I was sort of bummed because I did oh my god, I'm blanking on the name. American Gods, the Neil Gaiman.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was a big anniversary full cast production. And so a friend of mine listened to it and they're like, "Oh my God, I bought this off Audible. I didn't know you'd done that." And it's just because there's so many people on the cast that if you searched it up, my name wouldn't come up on Audible.
Oh,
So, but but anyway, around that number. Sure. A lot.
that's
It's been a
that's
bunch.
awesome. Very cool. And 4 Audie Awards, right?
I think something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's cool. It's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just stuff. It's whatever, right? No, that's awesome. That's fantastic. Cool. So I know you're kind of a geek like I am, and huge fan
Indeed.
of Star Wars and
I got
other
my Empire Strikes Back framed comic book right behind me.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's rad.
I got the
Oh
other ones
man,
in the other room. So yeah.
super cool. Yeah, and so like that growing up in the 80s and 90s and all that stuff was just, I know it was influential for me and I obviously for you too. And a lot of the books I've heard that you do are kind of in the speculative genre fiction too.
Mhm.
Um, would you share some more about the influences that you had growing up and how they kind of help shape you and your career and what you do?
Yeah, they definitely shape. I mean, I got a Slee Stack hat on right now, and a from Land of the Lost and a Visit Tattooing shirt. So
Oh
all that
wow.
geeky stuff from childhood definitely influenced me just in my outerwear. I'm
Yes.
ashamed to say, but no, I think it's a great question, and I think growing up, and it sounds like we probably had very similar childhoods
Mm,
and interests in that sense. But I grew up just a huge fan,
yes.
and I was just always excited. Like I subscribed to Starlog magazine,
Oh,
which was like this sci-fi movie magazine,
yeah.
and I loved behind the scenes footage of movies. Like I could just, I mean, I have another picture that I have framed. Actually, a magazine I framed is the Time magazine from when Empire Strikes Back came out, and I always like that. It was just one of the most important things I'd ever read because for me, I was born in 72. So
Hmm.
Star Wars was huge, but even more so, like Empire Strikes Back was mind blowing to me because it was my first. I was like, wait, a sequel? What is that? They make they just took the coolest movie ever and they're doing another one that continues on. So that was like my
Right.
first introduction to that, into loving a story and then being like, oh, there's more. And then I remember in this Time magazine, it was just all the behind the scenes and, it went into
Cool.
George Lucas as a storyteller and how it was actually, it was going to be 9 parts. And you're like, my mind
Right.
was just blown. And,
Yes.
I was a member of Bantha Tracks, the Star Wars fan
Wow.
club, and just all that type of stuff. I think as a kid just got me so excited. And even, I grew up playing music as well. And even
Hmm.
that, like being so excited about bands and when the bands would come out and like learning
Yeah.
the history of the bands and the band members and just diving into that. So I think being a having that excitement as a fan, I think
Hmm.
has really carried through to my life now. And I try to bring that, if any of that makes sense, I try to bring that into my work as an artist, whether it's on stage or
Yeah.
especially when doing audiobooks, especially, stuff like yours in this type of
Mm,
genre. Because I know how important that world building, is
right.
and was to me. So I want to honor that if I'm narrating books in that. And there have been times uh, when I've done series or books where maybe it's not necessarily my cup of tea. This is not one of them. Academy Bound is not one of them. I want to make that clear. But
Awesome. Thank you.
but but I have to remind myself, I'm like, but there are people who love this and they're
Hmm.
fans and they're invested in the series.
Right.
And I have to imbue the story with as much as I can to bring them in as much as I was brought in by the stuff that, excited me as a kid and still excites me now, whether it's Marvel or Star Wars or whatever. If that
Yeah.
makes sense. That was a little
Oh,
rambling, but yeah.
no, no, no. Totally. Totally makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah, like that's kind of my approach on the author side too, is
Yeah, I
being
bet.
a fan of all that stuff, growing up. I mean, it was such a great time of those movies and that
Oh yeah.
era. Um, and I just kind of wanted to bring a little bit of that into what I do as well, and little homages here and there. There are a few in the book.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you caught them. I'm sure
Something
hopefully
that
some will.
I can't remember if there's anything sort of overt or even Easter eggy, but I remember, and even though it's not exactly the same, but I kept thinking of there was definitely like a Last Starfighter
Oh yeah,
vibe, just in terms
yeah,
of like the overall feel of the book. I kept getting that from there,
uh-huh,
and it's just, but yeah, no, it was great. It's definitely caught a few moments, but yeah,
awesome.
there was a very recognizable and familiar just feel and vibe to it of like, oh yeah, I know this world. I love this world. I like this.
That's awesome. That's what I hope readers can and listeners can get from it too.
Mhm.
Even if they have no idea what that stuff is, that maybe they'll just enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But so but yeah, talking about the your narration and audiobooks, how did you get into doing all that?
Oh, that's a really good question. How did I get? I think you know what? I auditioned for a book The first book I ever recorded, that's how you do it.
Mhm.
I got a voiceover agent,
Okay.
and they were sending me. I was doing a lot of commercials and video games and here and there, and I auditioned for a book by a great young adult author by the name of Andrew Clements, and it was a
Okay.
book called The Last Holiday Concert, and I got it. And I worked with a company called John Marshall. It's called John Marshall Sound at the time. Now they're called John Marshall Media.
Mm.
And I worked with a wonderful director, um, and and it just, I don't know, went really well. I really felt good about it. And they just kept calling me back for other stuff that sort of opened the door. And then I would, squeak in and get another book and work with a different publisher. And they would say, "Oh, wow, that went well. Come back." And I, just kept sort of getting lucky and getting called back. But yeah, that was the first one, The Last Holiday Concert. I've just been lucky. And then also there's just a lot of knocking on doors. Once I was into
Mm.
it and was thinking, "Oh, I like this, and
Uh-huh.
I think I'm okay at it." Then it was just reaching out, through the people that I knew, through engineers I'd worked with, other directors, and just sort of saying, "Hey, can do you know anyone at this publishing house?" And then just saying, "Hey, this is what I've done. These are some books I've narrated," and people are nice enough to call me in and then keep having me back.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. And good advice sort of too for anybody who might be, thinking about getting into it, get
Yeah, you
get yourself
gotta, I
out there.
mean, yeah, you gotta get yourself out there. You gotta be on the pavement and, be nice to everyone and,
Right?
keep doing good work and hopefully that will beget more work.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Um, and I know we've talked before and you shared some of that process that you have about when you approach a new project for a book, like how you develop your character voices and the style that you're going to go
Mhm.
for. Would you mind kind of sharing a little bit about that process here and maybe like how your experience and talents as an actor kind of play into that narration stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing, obviously, read the book and, just to sort of get, what am
Right.
I reading?
That'd
What's
be
the
good.
story? Who are the characters? Is it first person, third person? So,
Yeah.
just reading through and getting an idea of the feel of what it is. And then just from there, you sort of get I mean, with Academy Bound was great because you'd gotten in touch with me and we were talking. So it was like you set it up. I immediately sort of knew, okay, even before reading the book, going, I think I get an idea of what this is going to be.
All
Hopefully,
right.
it's good after I start to read it.
Right.
Thankfully, it
Yes.
was. I was like, yeah, 'cause, you never know. Uh, and no, but it was a super pleasant surprise. So
Yeah.
it was great. So yeah, sort of discovering the world of what it is. Obviously, doing like nonfiction is going to be different from fiction.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So but with a book of fiction, and especially with a YA or more YA leaning, there's definitely a slightly different feel that you want to go with
Hmm.
sometimes. And then it's just sort of gleaming what's the best way to do it. What I loved about Academy Bound is my favorite style of book to narrate is first person narrative. Like I
Mm.
love that because to me it's the most, for lack of a better word, like performative, or like I feel
Yeah.
like an actor because you're literally in the mind of someone speaking out loud their thoughts and
Yeah.
what they're saying. And so I really like that. It just allows me as an actor to go a little deeper. And I think there are different schools of thoughts with audiobook narration.
Hmm.
I don't know if what I'm doing is right. I'm sure some people like it. Some people probably don't. But it's the only way that I know how to do it. And what feeds me is to look at it as a performance, and I don't want to just
Yes.
be reading a book to someone. I mean, when you read a book to your kids or to anyone, you don't want to just read it line by line, and you want to
Right.
imbue it
Right.
with something. So with a first person narrative, you really get to do that and sort of dig into the emotions. And then, it's about figuring out the different characters and the relationships.
Hmm.
And again, depending on how the book is written, you sort of go, okay, how far can I go with
Hmm.
voices? Or am I going to do voices at all? Or is it just going to be more of like an attitude? And I
Right.
I always like to cast. You know, if it's a book of fiction, there's lots of characters. I try to cast all the characters in my head. I just think about, okay, who would play this in a movie? And then it's great if it, you know, if I have a reference, you know, talking to the author, you know, you were really helpful, and you're like, okay, so Briggs, I always pictured him as Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Boom, perfect. Like
Okay.
that's exactly what I need, and probably where I would go with it as well. So
Nice.
I love doing that, being like, all right, this is Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Okay, I can see Brian Cox playing this role. There was almost a sort of it was a little bit meta with this, because when you reached out, you had mentioned that you knew some of my work from the Michael
Mhm.
Vey series.
Yes.
And so there was definitely a similar relationship with two of the characters, with the main character having a best friend, and the best friend is highly intelligent, you
Right.
know, and a little awkward. So because of that, I took oh my God, why am I blanking on his name? Um uh
Russ?
I'm sorry?
Was it Russ or
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. To
okay.
take
Yeah.
to take the you know, the character that and sort of so one of the best friend character in Michael Vey, I think I mentioned I based on a good friend of mine, Jay,
Yes.
you know, just in terms of his energy. And I was like, oh, great. So I'm going to take Russ and sort of base it on Austin, who's based on Jay. You know, so it was sort of like this weird meta casting there. Only as, you know, like a little private Easter egg
Yeah.
between us, and which you noticed.
Oh yeah.
Switch it up.
Big
But
time.
yeah, so anyway, that's sort of how I go about it. And then I like to work sort of just on instinct and just go.
Mhm.
I try not to plot it out too much as I'm reading. I'll just go through, okay, this person, all right, I'm going to cast as, you know, Dwayne the Rock Johnson,
Yeah.
whatever, Judi Dench will be this role, you know, blah blah blah, whatever it is.
Right.
And I think, so to go back to your question, how as an actor it sort of comes into that. I feel like that's how I try to approach things as an actor on stage or film and television as well.
Mhm.
You know, you want to plot out and come up with ideas and throw them out, you know, and then sort of work on instinct and just see what happens, and if it's you know, what excites me. And you know, the nice thing about this is if something doesn't work, I can just go back and re-record it.
Right.
but but generally that's how I like to go through it.
Oh yeah, no, it was great. And yes, Michael Vey was actually a pretty big influence on me in this book, because I started listening to that. Gosh, I don't remember when that came out, but well before I started this.
Mhm.
And yeah, you've done the whole series. It's something like what, 9 books or something. But
Yeah,
yeah,
there were two that I couldn't do because of scheduling, but yeah, but I've done
mm,
I think, or like three, I think books 3 and 4 I wasn't able to do because there was some weird scheduling snafu, but then
uh,
they brought me back, and I, yeah, been working on it ever since, which is great.
yeah, no, it was really cool. And you know, one of the reasons I reached out to you actually because I really enjoyed it, and you know that performance aspect that you're talking about. Me personally, as a
Mhm,
listener for audiobooks, I enjoy that a lot more than a straight read.
mhm.
You know, it brings the book to life. It brings the characters to life, especially in first person, like you were talking
Yeah.
about. Um, and in working on this one with you, it was a lot of fun to just discover, you know, along when you would submit stuff like
Mhm.
what you did and what your character choices and voices were that you came up with. And I was just like, oh, that's awesome. You know, you get that like tingle, goosebumps, and like
Oh,
all the right
cool.
places. Because I mean, I you know, there's some spots in the audiobook where, you know, I wrote it and I know what's coming.
Yeah.
And I've read it over, you know, a million times, but to hear you do it was like, and you nailed it.
Oh, cool.
You
Thank
know,
you.
yeah,
Well, that's
I
good
was
to
just
hear,
like,
because on the opposite side, for you know, again, like I said, as a narrator, audiobook performer, I'm sort of going on instincts, and
mm,
most of the time, you don't get this interaction with the author.
mm,
You know, it's rare, and
interesting.
so yeah, every now and then it'll be great. Like sometimes you have to go through the publisher,
Sure.
but I've always found, I did another series with a great author by the name of Jeff Rodkey, and he was the first
Okay.
person. He's done a lot of screenwriting and films, but it was very similar to Academy Bound, but
Hmm.
in the world of pirates and
Oh,
whatnot.
cool.
But I always remember I was doing it through I think it was through Audible, and they said, "Hey, the author would like to come in and sit in on your sessions." And I was going, "Oh
Hmm.
God,
Wow.
oh,
Okay.
how's that going to be? That's going to be," and it ended up being great, and we became really good friends. And
Nice.
we saw Iron Maiden in concert together last year. Um, no, it was
Rock
really
on, man.
cool but it was but I was terrified because it's his work, it's your work, so I'm going on instincts and coming up with my own ideas and what I think would serve it, but I didn't know if he was going to be in the booth and be like, "What are you doing?"
Right.
That's not how I envisioned it, and not at all. And the same thing with you. It was that idea of like sending off that first sample and going, "I hope it's okay." And if it's not, that's why you do that. You want to get notes
Sure.
back, but it's always that fear as a narrator. Like you want to look. It's. I want to get something out of it as an actor, but it's my job first and foremost to respect the text and to make the story that you did all the work. You know, So I want to respect that work and try to make it come to life even more so than it does just jumping off the page. And I don't want to gild the lily. I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to take away from it. I just want to give it whatever I can as a, for lack of a better word, a storyteller to uh, just I hate to say to bring the story to life because you already brought it to life. It's there. So, but yeah, so that's always a fear of mine as a narrator. Like I just don't want to, I don't want to screw it up. I hope the author is happy. So
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I
I
was
could totally
thrilled that
under.
you were,
Oh, absolutely.
or even
Yes.
if
No.
even if you weren't, that you lied and said that you were. So,
No. No way, man. No. 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 That was like, yeah, like I said before, got me in all the right places I hoped it would. Just it really is a performance, and it was a great one too.
cool.
Everything I hoped it would be. So I'm super grateful that you and I were able to work on this, and I can totally get that though what you're saying. If you had an author who was just nitpicking everything you did, and that could probably be that would be tough, I would imagine. But
Yeah, and thankfully that's never been the case. Like, I mean, I don't
good.
want to. Jeff was when he did come into the booth, it was amazing. It was great, but
Yeah.
it was. Yeah, I just never had that experience before.
No, that's cool. That's good. Well, yeah, like I said, sounds awesome. I'm just really, really grateful. My kids loved what they've heard so far too.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great.
In teenager speak, it was fire. So,
Good.
but
Did my Riz just go up? Can I say
yeah,
is that
there you
still
go.
in? I don't know. Changes with my kids. Yeah, they'll say something and then a week later I'll try to say it and they're like, "What? No, Dad, no one says it anymore." I'm like,
Right? It
"Oh,
goes out of fashion before we
yeah,
even like understand it.
I know. Oh well,
Yeah, well, parenting,
yeah,
adulting. Uh, so yeah, no, well, when I eventually get the sequel written, I'm gonna hit you back up and we're gonna keep going. So
I can't
I'm
wait.
excited.
Yeah, nothing else. I just want to see what happens.
Yeah, yeah. Well, me too.
Yeah,
Uh,
you have that. So that's a question for you. Do you?
yeah.
And going back to like what I was talking about before with like George Lucas and
Hmm.
during Empire and knowing that he had plotted out. Have you plotted out sort of an arc, or was it just I have an idea for this story, I'm just going to tell this, or do you sort of have an idea of where it could go, or
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's a bit of both.
mhm,
When I put this one together, and I wrote it took a long time. It was kind of it started as a thesis novel project for
mhm,
my MFA program. So, I had a few years to put this one together and pour over it and whatever. But I kind of, my process for writing is I kind of discover it as I go. Now, as far as like the big picture arc,
yeah,
the big story arc, yeah, I've got some things in mind for that. There's actually still a couple different divergent directions I could go. So I have we'll see how that shakes out, but
yeah, that's so cool.
no, it's a lot of fun, and you know, I'm not going to give anything away, but
Sure.
I wrote I wrote myself some good twists in this one to sort
Yeah,
of.
I'll say.
So I'm looking forward to diving back into it. I've had a bit of a delay in life, but
Mhm.
this year I'm cranking away. And um, if you guys pick up the audiobook or the hardcover, there is a sneak peek in the back of the prologue to the next one. So that's
Which
a
I
kind
I
of a
enjoyed reading and narrating that part very much as well.
awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, yeah. I like where that one started off, so I had to throw it in there. Could you anything else that you're up to, or that you're got going on, some projects or roles that you have, or anything coming out you want to share with everybody?
I'm trying to think if there's anything that I can talk about, because I know some
Yeah.
things they're like,
Hush
some
hush.
publishers are weird about books coming out. But like I said, doing 8 shows a week at at the Lion King at the Minskoff, so that's always fun. That keeps
That's
going.
awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I just finished I think we were talking about this maybe before we started recording, but
Mm,
I just finished up a podcast that I was doing with my two best friends,
yeah.
Jason and Dan, called Opening Weekend. It's still out there. It's 100 episodes, and I'm super proud of it. And I always encourage people to take a listen. But it's basically we go back every week. We'd go back to a different year over the last 40 to 50 years, and in no chronological order, just jumping around and talk about the movies that came out that particular weekend in different years, and just sort of where we were at the time, and then talk about the movies if we saw them or where we watched them, and it was a ton of fun. So I still, even though like we finished it, we got to our final episode, and we're gonna call it quits. I still like to push it on people just because I think it was so great. It was something that I love doing and miss dearly. So if you're looking for a good podcast, Opening Weekend,
That sounds like
check
fun.
it out.
Yeah.
Especially if you like the geeky stuff and
Right.
the nostalgia based stuff, it's fun. And my buddies Dan and Jason are just the two funniest guys I know. So it's a lot of fun.
That does sound fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out too. I'll have to go
Yeah, I
back and
think you
listen.
would. I didn't want to push it when we were going back and forth, but as we were talking, I was like, oh, he would love this. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
I
absolutely.
think it's like right in his world.
Cool. No, I'll check that out. Yeah, like we already said, big film geek from all that stuff. So that sounds
Yeah,
like fun.
and we started our very first episode was Star Wars. We figured, we'll
Of
start with
course.
that. And it was right when COVID hit. So,
Oh
we're like,
God.
what are we gonna do? We'll start a podcast. And then it's just built from there. And yeah, it was great. A lot of fun.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Fred, could you let everybody know where they can find you online or whatnot on the socials?
Yeah, I'm on the socials. It's at the Fred Berman.
There you go. Right there.
Easy. And I got a website, fredberman.net, not .com. Someone else. There was another Fred Berman who got the .com first.
Oh.
Yeah, someone's, I think an army veteran who passed away a long time ago, and
Oh,
their
okay.
children. So yeah, so you can't argue with that. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
take it. You deserve the .com.
Sure. Very
Yeah.
cool.
So yeah, I'm on all the socials and the website, and yeah, down at the Minskoff
Awesome.
Theater in New York City. If you're ever there, stop on by.
I absolutely want to. So if I ever do, I'm gonna come check it out.
Oh yeah, please do. Let me know.
That'd be cool. Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know if I mentioned it already, but the audiobook is going to release this June. Going to start pre-orders for direct sale on June 1st. And of course, it'll be available on Audible as well. If you go to my website right now, you can sign up for the newsletter and stay on top of all of that and get some of the special behind the scenes stuff that I'm going to throw out there, as well as get a download of the first chapter to check out as a little teaser there. So that'd be fun. You can also find me on all the socials, pretty much at JC Mastro Author. And just so everybody can see, let's do a cover reveal. There it
Yeah,
is.
look at
There's the
that.
audiobook. Woohoo! So I'm super excited. And Fred, thank you, man, so much for all you did with the book.
Thank
and
you.
just rocking it. Thanks for coming on and chatting with me about it and sharing a bit about you with everybody. And
Oh, my pleasure.
it was a lot of fun, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, this was great. And congratulations. It's a great book. Pick it up, go out there, people, read it, listen to it. It's really good. I can't wait for the sequel.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. We're out of here. Thank you guys.